This week, we take up the technical definition assignment. This assignment is worth 100 points and is due by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, March 31st. You must make sure to stay within the required range of 900 to 1,000 words. First, you must come up with a good technical definition topic. Start with your major. Run a Google search on new developments in your field. Your topic can be a device, concept, process, or material, but you need to select a topic that is relatively new, something added to your field within the last 15 years. Identify at least 3 terms that you can possibly work with. The sentence definition activity will help you come up with these 3 possible topics. When completing the sentence definition activity, remember to follow the proper pattern of defining a term. Begin with the term and put it in its appropriate category. Remember to be specific when identifying the category. A wrench is a tool, but so is a wooden stick. So to be more specific, you can categorize a wrench as a mechanical appliance. Then identify a characteristic to distinguish the term from other terms in its category. So a wrench is a mechanical appliance consisting essentially of a metal bar with frequently adjustable jaws adapted for catching or gripping a bolt head, nut, etc. to turn it. This definition is from the Oxford English Dictionary. Of course, a wrench would not be an appropriate topic for this assignment because it isn't a new device. But I hope you understand how to write a sentence definition. Then you need to do some research on these topics using the library databases to see if you can find scholarly sources on them. As you do research, you may find that you don't have enough material to write a definition on some of those terms, or you may find that you don't actually find the term interesting. Keep in mind that if the concept is very new, there may not be enough scholarly sources on it yet. You need at least 3 scholarly sources, journal articles or academic books or book chapters, but you can and should have more than 3 sources. So check out reference texts like an encyclopedia entry on that topic. You can also check out news on the topic in trade publications or even on some of those websites maintained by professional organizations in your field that you found through the Getting to Know Your Profession activity. Just make sure that you're looking at credible sources. If you find information on a random website with no professional affiliation, you have no guarantee that the information included in the source is credible. Wikipedia is not an acceptable source. So after you have checked out the 3 possible topics, pick the one that is most interesting to you. Always download and save your articles when you find them. Start reading your sources and make notes. When you write your extended technical definition, you will use expansion strategies like application or partition. So you have to sieve out relevant information from the different sources you find. And you won't just be using one source for one expansion strategy. You will bring together information from different sources to explain how a device works or the benefits of a technical process. This is called synthesizing. Please make sure to go through the synthesizing sources document I have provided. As you synthesize information from the different sources, you must consistently cite in text, and you must cite the sources in the reference list. This process will take time, so you need to read a little and make notes every day. When you read a source, even when you are just deciding on your topic, make notes. Suppose an article sounds very useful to you and you are now convinced that you will use this topic for your technical definition assignment. But if you don't take notes, when you come back to the source later on, you will have to read it all over again. I always recommend that you print out your sources and underline important information and write on the margins of the paper. That way, when you come back to the paper, as you are putting your definition together, you will be able to quickly find all the important information in the article. Now let's take a look at the technical definition example. Please remember that this is not a perfect paper. It was written by a student and it is pretty good, but you can write a better paper. That is why I have included my feedback on the example paper. You will be able to see some of the errors that the writer made and make sure not to repeat them. Don't copy the paper's style. Go through it to get a sense of what a technical definition looks like. First, think about the topic of the definition. Is this a term that you're familiar with? I certainly did not know anything about sharklet. So the writer chose a very interesting topic, a new material that immediately grabs your attention. Then look at the introduction. It is brief, but it immediately tells the reader what is being defined. The very first sentence is a sentence definition of sharklet. It follows the proper pattern of defining a technical term perfectly. It begins with the term sharklet, then identifies a specific category, surface texture, and then provides a distinguishing characteristic of the material designed to inhibit bacterial growth. The writer then follows up the sentence definition with a little more explanation. So all in all, this is a pretty good introduction, but keep in mind that whenever you provide information, you have to cite sources. Then, look at how the writer uses expansion strategies to develop the definition. You don't have to stick to the expansion strategies mentioned in the assignment description, but you need to use and identify expansion strategies and use the design principles that you have already studied and used in other assignments. Subheadings, lists, boldface, underlining, color coding, etc. Also, note how the writer cites sources. This paragraph shows how the writer is synthesizing information from different sources. Also, note how the writer incorporates a graphic. While the graphic is great, the writer did not label it properly. You must clearly label your graphics. Start with Figure 1 or Tab 1 and then add a descriptive title. Remember that only tables are labeled tab. All other graphics, images, charts, graphs, etc. are labeled figures. But it isn't enough to just label the graphic. You must refer to the graphic in your text and explain what it shows. So the best way for the writer to have introduced the graphic would have been to end the last paragraph with the sentence, "The patterns of this new material are shown in Figure 1 below." Remember that proximity isn't enough. That is, just because you put the graphic close to certain information in your paper doesn't mean that readers will immediately understand that the graphic is tied to that information. Finally, remember to always include a proper conclusion. Don't just abruptly end your paper. In your conclusion, very briefly sum up the main point of your paper. If you have any questions, email me as always.